So, you bought an AR. Now what? During this period of uncertainty, we've seen a massive increase in first-time firearm owners, and we've received a lot of calls asking for more information from folks who have just picked up their first firearm. We've decided to do a series of short videos in order to get the maximum amount of information out in a very digestible format. So first of all, welcome. The Second Amendment was written specifically for uncertain times like these, and you are joining a growing base of American citizens who are choosing to exercise that right. Now, first, some apologies. This is a rather informal setting. We're here at the home shop in observance of all social distancing norms, but please excuse the format because the information is just as valid. The first thing you want to do, the very first thing, is to learn, understand, and observe basic firearm safety rules and have a safe way to store your firearm. You have to have a way to store your firearm so that unauthorized folks can't have access to it. That's everything from a residential security container or a full-on gun safe all the way down to the trigger lock, which most likely came with the brand new firearm that you just purchased. If you have children in the home, there's also some great programs out there. NRA and NSSF have some adult learning programs that are fantastic, as well as Eddie the Eagle from the NRA and NSSF Project Child Safe, which are great for homes that have kids in the home to keep them safe as well, and they're oriented at that younger learning audience. So make sure you understand those firearm safety rules first and foremost before anything else happens. So once basic safety is understood, absorbed, and observed, now it's time to move on to make sure that our AR is set up correctly. Assuming we have our basic AR purchased, most come with some sort of sights installed. Iron sights are a viable sighting system, and you need a rear sight and a front sight. Some firearms come, some ARs come with a forged fixed front sight, such as this one, and some have a flip-up sight that is oriented on a rail or on a rail gas block. And then for rear sights, there are flip-up rear sights, such as this MBUS Pro, or our MBUS series that fit right on the receiver, as well as carrying handles and removable carrying handles. Bottom line is you need a rear sight, you need a front sight. They need to be lined up in order to aim the firearm. Magpul offers MBUS and MBUS Pro variations of sights that fit both your rear location as well as your front location if you do have a railed firearm. And there's some information on our website on choosing between those should your firearm have not come with sights. Another option is optics. So an optic is certainly an upgrade. It's always best to have irons as well as a backup system on any firearm because electronic objects can fail. Because they put the target and your aiming reference in a single focal plane, so you don't have to focus on a front sight and you can stay focused on the threat. Low power variable optics as well as red dots are best for up close defensive use. Larger magnification optics, and such as a full-on large rifle scope that you may think from a hunting firearm, is best used in those precision applications and not for defensive use. So think red dots and think low power variable optics, something in the 1 to 4, 1 to 6, 1 to 8 range, or iron sights for defensive use. Ammunition is required for a firearm to be useful. By law, the ammunition type that your firearm takes, the specific cartridge chambering, has to be marked on the barrel. Now that may be somewhere underneath the handguard, so you may not see it very easily, but it should also be marked in the owner's manual for your firearm. Of note is in a standard AR, there are 3 chamberings that are somewhat interchangeable: 223, 5.56, and 223 Wild. For a rifle marked 223, only use 223 ammunition in that firearm. For a rifle marked 5.56, you can use either 223 or 5.56 ammunition safely in that rifle. Same thing for 223 Wild, you can use either 223 or 5.56 ammunition, but it's a chamber specification that's oriented at slightly more precision applications. Now, certain rifles, make sure no matter what that you take your rifle to a proper range and test fire to make sure that it fires and cycles reliably with the ammunition that you've chosen. There are various rifles, some rifles like higher energy or less energy ammunition depending on how things are set up with gas ports and buffer weights and things like that. So always function fire any ammunition in your firearm to make sure that it works appropriately. There are different types of ammunition for defense or for target shooting and things like that at various price points. Gold Dot, this particular one right here is a defensive ammunition. This is an M193 ball ammunition, which is great for training, but also isn't terrible for defense when it comes down to it. There are lots of options out there and lots of information on the internet, so do some research and buy yourself some appropriate ammunition to go in that firearm. Ammunition for an AR has to be fed from a magazine. Magpul PMags are the most reliable magazine in the world, and they've been tested by third parties up to over 30,000 rounds between magazine-related stoppages. A more reliable magazine helps to make sure that your rifle functions when you need it the most. There's no reason to use a less reliable magazine, and chances are your rifle may have come from the OEM manufacturer, Smith, Ruger, Sig, Colt, with a Magpul PMag or more than one Magpul PMag. We make numerous capacities of magazines. Some states restrict the amount of ammunition that you can have in your firearm. Non-restricted state, a state without magazine capacity restrictions, you can choose from any of our magazines from 10 all the way up to 60 rounds in the D60 drum, should you choose. 30 rounds is considered the standard and the most prolific of all of these magazines. It's always beneficial to have more ammunition in the firearm, especially when responding to a defensive situation at home with an intruder or multiple intruders especially, because you may be in your pajamas and not really have a place to store extra magazines, so what's in the gun may be all you have to respond to that threat. It's advisable to have a number of quality magazines. So if your rifle came with one or your rifle came with three, it's always good to have a couple more just so you have a handful on hand. I like to have at least 10 magazines for every rifle that I have that are functional and in a rotation. At least 10 for every rifle is a good baseline, but as long as you have a solid handful to start out with, you're in good shape and we can go from there. When it comes to shooting accurately, whether you have iron sights or an optic, your firearm has to be zeroed in order for where you're aiming to be where the projectile goes. There are numerous resources online that cover how to zero an actual firearm based on whatever sighting system you have on your firearm, so I encourage you to take a look at those. Go to a proper firearms range and make sure that your firearm is zeroed so that where you're looking through the sights or the optic is exactly where that projectile is going. A defensive rifle needs a good sling. With a handgun, we have the option of placing that handgun into a holster whenever we need both hands to do some other task. However, with a rifle, we don't have that option. So a sling allows us to hang that rifle and go ahead and use both hands to do whatever task is at hand, and then go right back to it. It's a little awkward if you don't have a way to do this. Get yourself a sling. There's a series of videos on our website on slings and the various sling products that we have, as well as the various attachment points, so that you can figure out how to hook it up to the rifle that you have in a way that suits how you want to use it. At a very basic level, zeroed sights, sling, magazines, and ammunition are all you need for a very basic but very capable defensive rifle. There are some things that you can do to increase the capability of that rifle, as well as to increase its fit or its ergonomic interface with you, the shooter, and so we'll take a look at a few of those as options for upgrade.